The studio of Oprah Winfrey's talk show buzzed with anticipation. The live audience, warmed up by opening jokes and bright lights, eagerly awaited the guest's appearance. The large screen behind Oprah flashed a trailer for Adam Sandler's new comedy film, a light-hearted yet heartfelt story about family values. He was there to promote the project, but no one was prepared for what happened next. This moment went down in television history as one of the most intense and emotional conflicts on a talk show. Adam Sandler, known for his easygoing charisma and humor that borders on the absurd, entered the studio to thunderous applause. His signature smile, slightly shy but genuine, instantly won over the crowd. He waved, tossed out a light joke about how hard it was to park near the studio, and took a seat across from Oprah. The atmosphere was warm, almost homely. But in Oprah's eyes, as she greeted her guests, there was a faint spark, a harbinger of the storm to come. Oprah, as always, looked impeccable. Her dark blue dress contrasted with the soft glow of the spotlights, and her voice carried the characteristic warmth that made her a television icon. She started with easy questions about Sandler's new film, his collaboration with up-and-coming actors, and the inspiration behind the comedy. Adam responded in his usual style, humorous but with a touch of sincerity when it came to the family values he aimed to convey through his project. "Adam, your new film is a story about family, love, and how people find each other in tough times," Oprah said, smiling. "But tell me, why do you always choose comedy? Why not something more serious?" The audience chuckled, sensing a slight jab in the question, but Adam just shrugged. "You know, Oprah, I love making people laugh. Life's tough enough as it is. If I can give someone an hour of joy, that's a win in my book," he replied, earning enthusiastic applause. The cameras hummed, operators smoothly panning to capture every moment. The co-hosts, guest journalist Amy Robach and comedian Kevin Hart, who was co-hosting that day, sat nearby, smiling and nodding. But a subtle tension hung in the air, as if it had grown thicker. Oprah leaned forward, her smile sharpening. "Adam," Oprah continued, her voice growing slightly firmer, "you talk about joy, but some critics say your comedies are, how should I put it, frivolous. That they avoid real issues. For example, in your new film, there's a scene where you joke about poverty. Some find it insensitive. What do you say to that?" The audience fell silent. Adam's smile faded slightly, but he remained composed. His fingers gripped the armrest of his chair, a subtle gesture that didn't escape the cameras. "I hear you," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "My goal isn't to mock anyone but to show that even in tough times, you can find something light. In that film, the character jokes because it's his way of coping with hardship. It's not about disrespect, it's about humanity." The audience clapped, but Oprah didn't back down. Her eyes narrowed, her tone growing sharper. "But don't you think, Adam, that's an easy way out?" she said, raising an eyebrow. "You avoid serious topics by hiding behind humor. People expect more responsibility from stars like you. You're not just a comedian, you're an icon. Why not use that platform for something deeper?" A hush fell over the studio. Kevin Hart shifted uncomfortably in his seat, glancing at Oprah as if trying to figure out where she was going with this. Amy Robach tried to diffuse the tension, chiming in. "Well, I think humor is a form of impact too, right?" But her voice was drowned out by the mounting tension. Adam leaned forward, his eyes locking with Oprah's. He was still smiling, but now it was the smile of someone facing a challenge. "Oprah, I respect your opinion," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But I believe laughter isn't an escape, it's strength. When people laugh, they feel less alone. I'm not trying to solve the world's problems, I just want people to feel better for a moment." The audience erupted in applause, but Oprah pressed on. She leaned back in her chair, folding her arms, her voice taking on a more sarcastic edge. "That's convenient, Adam. Laughter is strength, you say? But don't you think it's a way to dodge responsibility? You make films that earn millions, but have you ever considered how they affect people struggling with real issues? Like your charity work. We all know you donate, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to your wealth, isn't it?" The studio froze. The camera zoomed in on Adam's face. His jaw tightened, his eyes flashed with anger, but he still held himself together. The audience gasped, some whispering to each other, others pulling out their phones to record the moment. In the control booth behind the glass, producers exchanged frantic looks, one grabbing their headset as if pleading with the director to intervene. Adam took a deep breath, his fingers curling into a fist, but his voice remained steady. "Oprah," he said, looking her straight in the eye. "I'm not claiming to be a saint. I do what I can, how I can. My film's my charity. It's not about bragging or making excuses. It's about giving people hope. If you think I'm not doing enough, that's your opinion. But accusing me of dodging problems? That's unfair." Kevin Hart tried to jump in, tossing out a joke. "Hey, Oprah, maybe let Adam star in a drama? I'd watch that." But the audience's laughter was weak, nervous. The tension was palpable, and everyone sensed the conflict was nearing a boiling point. Oprah, however, didn't let up. She leaned forward, her voice now almost accusatory. "Adam, you talk about hope, but don't you think your jokes sometimes offend? For example, in your last film, there's a scene where you mock mental health issues. People struggling with their mental health don't always find that funny. Have you ever thought about that?" It was a low blow. The audience gasped. Someone in the back row shouted, "That's too much!" Adam froze, his face changing. His smile vanished, his eyes darkened. The camera caught his hand trembling as he rested it on his knee. A deafening silence settled over the studio, broken only by the hum of the cameras and the click of a microphone. The silence in the studio was deafening. The cameras hummed, capturing every movement, every expression. Adam Sandler sat motionless, his hand still trembling on his knee, his eyes, usually sparkling with mischief, now burning with quiet anger. Oprah's latest comment, about joking over mental health issues, had struck a deep chord. The audience, sensing the tension, froze, some gripped their armrests, others whispered to their neighbors, and a few were already holding up their phones, recording a moment that was sure to go viral. Oprah, sensing she'd hit a nerve, didn't back down. Her voice, though still carrying a professional warmth, grew sharper, almost accusatory. "Adam, I'm not saying you intentionally offend anyone," she said, raising her hands in a gesture that seemed conciliatory but felt more patronizing. "But you have to admit, your films sometimes touch on sensitive issues. People struggling with mental health might feel hurt. Don't you think you should be more careful with those topics?" Kevin Hart, who had tried to lighten the mood earlier, now sat silently, his eyes darting between Oprah and Adam. Amy Roback, the other co-host, nervously fiddled with her pen, clearly wishing someone from production would step in. In the control booth behind the glass, a director could be seen waving their arms, whispering into a headset, but the show went on. Live television doesn't forgive pauses. Adam took a slow, deep breath, his jaw tightening. He glanced at the audience, as if seeking support, then turned back to Oprah. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet but carried a strength few associated with the comedian known for his goofy roles. "Oprah," he began, choosing his words carefully, "I respect what you do. You give people a voice, you raise important issues. But let me say something. My films aren't lectures. I'm not trying to teach people how to live. I tell stories that help people smile when things are tough. And if someone saw offense in my jokes, I'm willing to apologize. But accusing me of belittling people? That's not fair." The audience erupted in applause, but the sound carried tension. The crowd was divided. Some shouted words of support for Adam, while others whispered, clearly siding with Oprah. The camera zoomed in on Oprah's face, where a flicker of irritation passed before she masked it with a professional smile. "I understand, Adam," she said, but her tone grew more insistent. "But let's be honest. You're not just a comedian. You're someone with immense influence. Your films reach millions. And when you joke about mental health or poverty, it's not just jokes, it shapes perceptions. Don't you think you could use your platform for something bigger? Like fighting stigma, instead of reinforcing it?" It was a direct hit. Adam froze, his eyes narrowing. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers gripping the armrests so tightly his knuckles turned white. The sound of clicking heels echoed as a producer's assistant rushed toward the director, clutching a tablet. In the back rows of the audience, someone shouted, "Give him a break, Oprah!" But the cry was drowned out by the tense silence. Adam stood up. It was a slow, almost theatrical movement, but there was nothing staged about it. His posture, usually relaxed, now radiated resolve. He looked at Oprah, then at the audience, and finally turned to the camera, speaking directly to the millions watching at home. "You know, Oprah," he began, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "I grew up in a family where laughter was the only thing that held us together when everything was falling apart. My dad worked 12-hour days, my mom battled depression, and I learned to joke to help them forget their troubles, even for a moment. And I'm not ashamed of what I do. My films aren't about solving the world's problems. They're about giving people a moment of joy. And if you think that's frivolous, maybe you don't understand how powerful laughter can be." The studio exploded with applause, louder than ever. Some audience members stood clapping, while others wiped away tears. Kevin Hart, who had been silent until now, shouted, "That's it, Adam!" his words sparking laughter from parts of the crowd. But Oprah wasn't swayed. She folded her arms across her chest, her face impassive. "That's a nice speech, Adam," she said as the applause died down. "But don't you think it's just a way to justify yourself? You talk about joy, but aren't you hiding behind it to avoid tough conversations?" That was too much. Adam turned sharply toward her, his eyes flashing. He took a step toward the edge of the stage, as if ready to leave, but paused. The cameras zoomed in on his face, a mix of anger, pain, and dignity. "Oprah," he said, his voice now low but piercing, "I'm not hiding. I'm doing what I do best. And if you think my jokes are a problem, maybe the problem is how you're seeing them. I respect your work, but I won't let you diminish mine. I'm done." With that, Adam turned and walked toward the exit. His steps echoed loudly in the silent studio, the click of his shoes reverberating off the polished floor. The audience gasped, someone shouted, "Adam, don't go!" The camera panned to the control booth, where producers were in a frenzy, gesturing wildly. Amy Robach jumped up, trying to say something, but her words were lost in the chaos. Kevin Hart, grinning widely, exclaimed, "Now that's a moment, people!" But even his joke couldn't diffuse the tension. Adam disappeared backstage, leaving the studio in a state of shock. Oprah sat silently, her face a mask of professional calm, but her eyes betrayed a hint of unease. The audience buzzed, split between those applauding Adam and those whispering that Oprah had a point. The cameras continued to hum, capturing every moment. As clips began appearing on social media, someone in the audience had already uploaded a video, and it was going viral. Oprah, regaining her composure, turned to the camera with a forced smile. "Well, that was unexpected," she said, trying to regain control. "We'll be back after the break." But it was clear this moment had already made history. In the control booth, one director ripped off their headset, shaking their head, while another frantically dialed, likely calling Adam's agent. The audience continued to murmur, and hashtags like hashtag Sandler vs. Oprah and hashtag Team Adam were already trending on Twitter. The next day, clips from the show flooded the internet. Some called Adam a hero for defending the value of humor and his dignity, while others felt Oprah was right to call out his responsibility as a public figure. Some media outlets wrote that Adam came off as overly emotional, while others praised his sincerity. Adam himself didn't comment, but his team released a brief statement. "Adam Sandler is grateful for the support of his fans and continues to believe in the power of laughter." Oprah, for her part, briefly addressed the incident in the next episode, saying, "Sometimes conversations get tough, but that's part of the dialogue." Yet many noticed her words lacked their usual confidence. This conflict left an open question: did Adam do the right thing by walking off? Was Oprah right to demand more accountability from him? And can humor be as powerful a tool for impact as serious activism? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know. Who do you think was right?